Hey, gang, thanks for joining us again. This is Sean with Kyle for Drinking on the Fly. Hey, we've got Kevin from Casting Feathers and Fur here with us tonight to help judge. I know you guys have been really excited and you've really liked the content we've put out so far, so we thought we'd bring an artist on the show to tell us what we're doing wrong. So I'm sure Kevin's going to talk a lot of smack with us as we're tying this fly. And tonight's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to tie one fly because next week, Kyle will be tying one fly. Now, my fly is a guide fly because you guys know me and I love to tie quick, easy, and dirty flies. And so what I'm going to be tying is a disco shrimp. Now, before we get to the disco shrimp, we're staying all Missouri the next 2 weeks. Tonight, we're going with Space Camper out of Kansas City from Boulevard Brewing Company. Now, this is a Cosmic IPA. I wouldn't necessarily say it's New England. I wouldn't necessarily say it's juicy, but it's a nice, decent IPA that's easy to drink. It's not overpowering. And if you're brand new into this style of IPA, this is one you want to start with. And I'm pretty sure that Boulevard's big enough now that it is nationwide. So check out Cosmic IPA, Space Camper Cosmic IPA by Boulevard Brewing Company. Kyle, what are you drinking tonight?
I got a Schlafly coffee stout.
Oh, those are good.
Yeah.
Not as good as my favorite, but it's good.
And what's your favorite?
My favorite is the Public House Giddy Goat.
Okay.
That's a good one. But Schlafly is more prevalent in most areas. Kevin, I know you've got an exciting beer tonight that you're having.
Yeah, I've got a beer that probably 20 people have heard of, but it's Clag Brewery from Sandusky, Ohio, and this is a juicy IPA. In fact, it's called Juice Lee. It's an excellent beer, and from a small restaurant / brewery in Ohio. So check it out if you can find it.
You know, that's one of the great things about craft beer. And I'm going to say this, and this is why I think craft beer and fly tying and art go along so well together. Craft beer allow people to put in different ingredients and make something that is similar but unique, just like the way we all know those patterns that we tie, and we can tie them just a little bit different. And, you know, Kevin, as we were talking about, artwork has become such a big thing with beers and beer cans and beer bottles, you know, and you were describing it as being like the LP, the old album covers.
Right. I mean, when we were kids, that's kind of what attracted people to records. And, you know, you look at the cover and then you sometimes check out the music. And I think, and then now this is the new venue for creativity. So, I mean, I know so many people that go and pick out a beer often based on the label first, and then they'll read the ingredients and the hops and all the profiles and everything like that. So it's been fun.
Yeah, it really has. It really has. And we might as well give a shout out to Hootsuite. I know she's, you know, forefront in the beer design industry. You can follow her on Instagram, just like you can follow Kevin at Casting Feathers and Fur.
Yeah.
All right. Well, without further ado, I'm going to readjust my camera and we're going to start in. I'm going to show you the disco shrimp and we're going to talk about it and how we can tie it. And I know I'll get plenty of engagement from the crowd here as we do this. All right. We'll be right back with a new camera angle.
You got to tell us what that vice.
Yeah. You know, this is a great vice. This is the original vice that I got. I got my first vice in a kit like so many of us. And then when I upgraded, I bought a Griffin. I wanted the Montana Mongoose, but I just couldn't afford it at the time. And so this is the Spider Vice, but I recently upgraded to the Cam Jaws, and man, I like those so much better. I'm not saying they work better by any stretch of the imagination. They probably work exactly the same, but to me, there's just something about setting that hook up and then just sliding the cam closed. It just seems so much easier. So that is and this is the thing is I've talked to the guys at Griffin and we've got friends that are bullying them, but they don't want to come on the show. So, but we'll still support them. So this is my fly.
We'll get you a Renzetti, don't worry.
Yeah. Nobody from Norvice wants to come on either. So this is the disco shrimp, and what makes it the disco shrimp is you just go to your local hobby store, your little arts and crafts store, your like a Hobby Lobby or a Michaels, and they sell these little sequins, and these little sequins are make it disco, so they're gonna flash. And then I'm using a River Road Creation shrimp cutter for the body. And I don't know if you can tell that so well with that light being so white, but I've got a body right here, and we're gonna show you how to use that. And again, this is River Road Creation, so you just use that little cutter to cut that out. I made my own eyes out of monofilament, 30 pound, and then I used Loon Thick, and then a coating of Loon Orange, and then another coating of Loon Thick. I know you use Solar Res. Does Solar Res have a UV that you can do this with?
You talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a thick, thin, and just
Okay.
like Loon. Yeah, they all have like
Okay.
their thicknesses.
Okay. And then on this, I guess I used it all, but there's a glow in the dark Flashaboo. Okay. And that's what I normally use for these antenna because I like to fish this at night around lighted docks down in the saltwater. So I normally have that, but instead I'm a substitute bucktail because I know a lot of our viewers might not have the glow in the dark Flashaboo. And then for the body here where it's white, that's actually, I think that's hot white, but I'm going to be using hot chartreuse for this just to keep the green going with it. And that's going to be a glow in the dark from Fly Tires Dungeon. And then I'm going to use Fly Tires Dungeon legs. And I'm just going to use Nano Silk because that's what I've got loaded up in my right bobbin. So this is actually, this isn't going to be Nano Silk. This is going to be Big Bug. I thought I had the other. Oh, here's my other bobbin. Oh, we'll use this one. So I went ahead and took the liberty of putting the disco part together. And the way I do this is I simply take 2 or 3 of these, cup them together with the cup facing forward. So they're going to catch the water and pop. And then I just put them on the hook like you would anything else. And so these little sequins are just right there. And I'm going to keep those up front as much as possible. And this is going to be twofold. One, it's going to reflect light. And number two, obviously, it's going to make a popping sound as that shrimp goes across the water. You don't have to use the disco. The foam will be enough if you stand it up to make a popping sound. This is just a little bit more. And I normally tie this on a B10S in size 1. But tonight, hey, we're going to Fly Tires Dungeon. Why not? We're going to use their MS100 in a size 2. It's, other than the hook gap, it's lengthwise, it's really close. It's got a little bit of a bend in the hook, but not enough to matter. So we're going to go ahead and grab that thread. Move my microphone here and hopefully I won't go too bad as I do this. I've got to move my microphone to the other side. I figured that out after this is episode 5. I finally figured out I need to move my microphone.
Yeah, I got to figure out where I'm going to put mine when I get that actually set up.
Yeah, well, don't put it on the right hand side.
Yeah, the left would probably be the best on my bench.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can, there's really no rhyme or reason for how I do this one. Again, like I said, this is more of like a guide fly. So I'm pumping these out pretty fast whenever I find out that we're going to wind up going to salt water. So what I do is I pinch this so that they splay out, and then I'm going to cross them like that when I tie them so that they're going to be sticking out again. So you've sort of got 2 points of contact. And length on this, again, this is going to be a matter of preference, how far out you want the eyes to be. And so I'm just going to wrap it back, and then I'm going to take a pair of not so good scissors and slice that mono off. And then I'm going to take, and this is where I would use, if you have the glow in the dark Flashaboo, that's great. Otherwise, I'm just going to use some green bucktail here. It's a yellowish green. And this is just going to be some of the feelers on it. I like to get pretty generous with this. I know we talked last week about being generous with flies is not always the best idea. We were talking about especially the Clouser minnow, but because this is covered in foam, I'm not too worried about having too much material on that for the way it floats. And shrimp are just they're kind of odd in the way that they have they don't have a lot of stuff sticking out of them, but it feels like they've got a lot of stuff sticking out of them. So with that, I am now going to put in some of my hot green big game hair from and this is Glow Hot Chartreuse Big Game Hair from Fly Tires Dungeon. This is a great thing. Loon makes these, and I always talk about Loon a lot. But they make there's little circles that screw together. And this is great for holding your dubbing and your big game hair and stuff. And what do you think? Do you think the green or do you think the yellow? It's more of a
green.
yellow, I think. Green?
Yeah,
All right,
go
we'll
green.
go green.
I'll go green.
Packers are playing tonight.
All right,
Yeah,
there we go. Now,
what rod are you throwing this on?
because I'm being salt, minimum of an 8-weight,
Uh-huh.
I can throw this on a 6-weight. There's no weight to this. I could probably throw it on a 4-weight. But that's because I mainly use a 4-weight. Right. But this for salt water, it's going to be an 8-weight. The big game hair is the one that you're always gonna have more than you need. It's deceptively thin, and so the idea is we're gonna double this over twice and cut it twice. So we're gonna wind up with 4 times. If you got a half a pencil, you're gonna wind up with 2 pencils. So that is something to keep in mind when you're cutting that off, and it's always easier to add than it is to take off.
And this is a synthetic?
Yeah, this is a synthetic from Fly Tires Dungeon, and it will actually glow in the dark. You can take your UV flashlight, like when you're drying your UV eyes, and it will even show up there, sort of being, and I'm trying to remember how I normally do this. I think I normally just come around, and it'll shine it up for you. So, and then I'm just going to sort of tie this around here, if I can do this right with my microphone in the way. We'll just tie it on the side and then tie it down. And your foam body is really going to push that down a lot. And I can move that back a little bit further, honestly. And then I'm going to have to come back in front and tie on that foam body. I pride myself on memorizing my fly patterns, and then I realize I have to tie like 3 of them to figure out how I did it the last time.
Yep, that's how fly time works.
I think that's a point of pride. Is I don't need to look at how to do that again.
I think when first year I tied, I think I looked at a YouTube video the whole time I tied.
Yeah. And then you get to be a little bit older, and you're like, oh, I can remember how to do that, and you're like, no, I can't. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to tie the foam in first.
Well, even rock bands rehearse before they go on stage, and they've done it for decades, right? You got to.
Yeah, but we're better than rock bands.
So this synthetic doesn't pick up a lot of water, evidently, because you're throwing it on a pretty light rod, right?
Yeah, no, it does not. It does not. And
some of that synthetic, some of that like EP fibers, that'll absorbs a good bit of water, and they could be heavy fly.
And it can be. And this is, it feels a lot like EP fiber, but I tie a lot of minnow patterns with this material, and it just doesn't seem to hold it as much as you would think that it probably would. And, the thing about, and I've said this a dozen times, I always thought that it was a waste of money. Anything that cheap can't be that good. And I have been surprised time and time again by the quality of the stuff Fly Tires Dungeon puts out. Now, in full disclosure, because I have been so impressed and I have been in contact with them and they have been on the podcast multiple times, we do have a working relationship together, but I do not get like a sponsorship of of cash, I get some freebies and I get some, hey, try this out and tell me what you thinks.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like just actual pay, I don't get it. So once I get that little tied up there a little bit, I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to clip this to a point.
What
And I'm going
thickness
to tell you
of
what,
foam do you use?
I'm using just 2mm foam that I grabbed from Hobby Lobby.
Okay, that's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah, it's you can buy. I don't know why you would. I know fly shops sell foam, but I don't know why you would. And all of this stuff that I'm tying, other than the foam, well, you can get the foam, I'm sure, from Dooley, but other than the disco part, Dooley has all of this, so you can save 15% over at Dooley's flyfishing.com whenever you do this. And you can even use glow in the dark thread if you want. It's just how you want to make it. But this is, if I can get around that, I'll just use scissors. This is just, like I said, it's a quick and easy guide fly. And when you're not on video, it's even quicker and easier. But, you know, there's a nice little shrimp pattern. You're going to get the pop. You can come through here and clean up any stragglers that you want to. But, I mean, you talk about a fast, productive fly for night fishing on a dock in the salt. And you can change this up. If you want to go with pink, you can use a pink setup. You can use anything you want to. The tan, I figure they're not going to see the top of the tan too much. It's sort of a neutral color. I've got the glow in the dark here on the bottom with this, and then I've got the brighter yellow, and I've got the eyes that are going to reflect, especially under a green dock. And that for a saltwater guide fly, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Right there.
So in the water column, is that somewhere under the surface or on the surface?
It's going to be on the surface because of the foam.
Uh-huh.
It's literally going to be, it's like a gurgler,
Right.
but it's fancier.
Right. But
You know,
that's
but-
thin foam to keep it up on top. So that's interesting.
It is, but you've really got no weight.
Right.
You know, your deer hair's not going to sink it, and we're not using enough of the synthetic to sink it. And these sequins don't weigh anything.
Right.
And so, you know, when you're stripping and popping, because it's a relatively fast retrieve, it's going to stay right on top.
I would think
So-
black would work too. Like if you don't have the light,
Yep.
you know, the black, they always say against the sky is a great,
Mhm.
it's a great color for nighttime.
Yeah, it is. I
Awesome.
think I don't think there's a lot of things you can do to mess this one up. You might want to go with more of a silver disco, depending on the watercolor. I know some places in Florida it's silver spoons, some places in Louisiana it's gold spoons. I change that up once in a while. I haven't noticed a difference in hits and fish caught, but I mean, how simple. You know, how simple is that little fly if you're going to the salt? You know, if you're going to the salt, that's just a super simple fly. And I'll get a better picture of that because my light, I know I've got this really bright light and that's sort of blinding that. So I'm going to switch the camera back and we'll talk for a minute and then we'll get Kyle ready for next week. So yeah, that's my guide fly, guys. I mean,
Sweet. I've never
That's-
tied a
that's-
shrimp pattern.
I've tied 4 or 5 shrimp patterns and they're really nice. And I keep saying I'm going to try them for bass just because it can look like a crayfish, you know, that's popping across the top of the water, but then I never do fish them. But if
No.
gurglers work and you're fishing it where you can fish a
Yeah.
gurgler, you're going to be able to catch that.
Yeah.
It'll
Or
catch-
even the
it-
stealth bomber from last episode.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, for sure.
So-
Yeah, you'll definitely catch a bass with it. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you make
For
a little
sure.
noise on the surface,
Yeah.
you'll get their attention.
And I don't remember where I saw the disco shrimp, but I know for an absolute fact that the only thing that has in common with the disco shrimp that I saw is that it uses foam, it has sequins, and it has eyes.
Hmm.
The other materials, I don't think were what that called for. I know I used the glow-in-the-dark Flashabou when I first made it. I know I used glow-in-the-dark thread when I first made it. You know,
Yeah,
And you
probably
can
use
put
whatever.
yeah, and you can put chenille around that body if you want to. I mean, you can use any kind of dubbing you want to, especially the big game dub, or not the big game, but the big game dubbing. Any of the longer dubbings you want to, you can make a dubbing loop and loop it and then just pull it down, which I thought about doing on this one. Then I'm like, we're already into it. So, but I mean, as long as the hook's covered, you've got a solid guide fly. And I think guide flies, we've talked about this before. And Kevin, I know you talked about this too. I think guide flies are underrated.
Well, they just don't sell in the shops. They're for catching fish, not for fishermen, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I got a great clouser that I use for it's a shrimp pattern, but it's just basically a clouser, but I use coyote fur because I inherited a coyote coat and I just cut it up, and man, it's awesome. But it sinks down, so I put some bead chain on it, so it acts more like a clouser, but it works for great crayfish patterns.
Oh yeah,
they just get hung up a lot. So, but they're easy to tie too.
One of the flies that I'll be tying later in the episodes is it's a rabbit hair or a zonker crawfish.
Yeah, those are cool.
They're
heavy,
cool,
though.
but yeah,
you gotta lob them. Yep.
I tried that on my 4-weight. I caught a fish on it, but it was not something I would cast.
Yeah.
It's a 6 or an 8-weight fly. I mean, because I made it big because, streamers, and poor eyesight. So it was a giant fly, but second cast, I hooked up on a beautiful, beautiful smallie, probably 16 inches. Yeah. It was nice. And then we got run off the property that we were fishing on because the woman said it was private, even though there was flowing water. That was an ordeal.
Was that just this past summer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I'd tied it and I'd never fished it before. And I said, hey, I'm going to fish this. And I tied it on. I get like 3 false casts in and I'm like, okay, let's just get it in the water. And it worked fabulous, but that lady didn't think so. So, all right, guys, this is a shorter episode. Kevin's going to be back with us next week when we drop the next episode, and it's going to be a longer one. So we're going to make up our full hour in these 2 episodes. We always try to get you a half hour each show. We usually go a little bit long, but we're going to go ahead and let you guys go. Hey, be sure to check out the folks that help support the show, and definitely go over and check out on Instagram, Casting Feathers and Fur, because, the stickers that he has, the artwork that he has, I mean, Kevin is phenomenal, and he's actually the one that designed our logo. So if you like our logo, and that was something he did for us just out of the kindness of his heart, because he knows that we're drinking too much alcohol to be able to afford to pay for anything on this show. That's a joke.
Yeah.
Everybody but Kevin's laughing. He's like,
Happy
yeah, I know you guys. He's like, you guys are drinking way too much. But yeah, he does a great job, and you guys can check out all of his artwork and his stickers and everything else over there at Casting Feathers and Fur on Instagram. Kyle, anything else you want to prep what you're going to tie for everybody so they know when we come back what you're going to see?
Yeah, like you want me to tell them what it is?
Yeah, go ahead and tell them. Give them a material list in case they want to tie along.
Yeah, so I'm going to be tying a stone fly. This is definitely not a guide fly. This one's going to take a little bit. So it's a wired body stone fly. I actually am using, I don't know if you can see this. It's so small. It's the football beads. Have you seen those yet?
Yeah.
By Spawn. Spawn Fly Fish has them. I'm using that as the head on the stone fly because it has a little bit more, buggier look to it. Cool. I thought it was cool to use, so I just actually started using those. And then goose biots is going to be included, wire, UV resin, scud back, and some dubbing.
Cool.
And that's it.
Sounds great. Well, I'm looking forward to next week, guys. Be sure and join us. Hit that like and subscribe, and hey, share this out on social media. Let your friends know. Somebody's got to help support the habit. Talk to you guys next week.